Before there were autism parent memoirs, there were parent memoirs about children with other forms of intellectual and developmental disability. Although these early exemplars followed a much different trajectory than most of the autism parent memoirs that would follow, it's worth examining them in some detail, not only to untangle the origins of the intact mind, but to show that this concept was neither inevitable nor the only possible response to significant cognitive impairment. The first parent memoir about intellectual disability was Pearl Buck's The Child Who Never Grew. It was published in 1950 when Buck's daughter Carol was 30 years old. But if her opening line was any indication, it represented a project she had been struggling with for decades. I have been a long time making up my mind to write this story. Later, Buck would learn that Carol suffered from what we now know as phenylketonuria, PKU, an inability to metabolize the amino acid phenylalanine, for which all infants are now routinely screened, as the symptoms, including cognitive impairment, seizures, eczema, and behavioral challenges, can be prevented through dietary adjustments. But in 1924, all Buck knew was that her 4-year-old daughter's mind had stopped growing. This short account follows Buck from China, where she lived most of her life, to the United States. Desperate for answers, she bounced from doctor to doctor until a staff member at the Mayo Clinic, notably not the psychologist who had just given her an ambiguous, indecisive report, finally spoke plainly. Carol will never be able to speak properly. She will never be able to read and write. She will never be more than about 4 years old, at best. Prepare yourself, madam. Buck and Carol returned to China, but by 1929, they were back in the United States in search of an institutional placement. Buck credits a terrifying incident for catalyzing this decision, in which the family, by this point, she and her then-husband John had adopted a daughter, was forced to hide with neighbors while communist soldiers attacked foreigners. Also influential was the growing realization that Carol would always be ostracized in their expat community. Part 3 of Buck's memoir describes the methodical process by which she selected the Vinland Training School in New Jersey, where Carol lived until her death in 1992.